Since the dawn of time, the human race has seen mystery and intrigue around every corner. Mysterious events have been put down to the supernatural, the paranormal, and even the extraterrestrial. One thing's for sure, there have been a lot of unexplained mysteries over the centuries, and with modern technology giving people greater access to photography in previously unexplored parts of the galaxy, there are bound to be plenty more cropping up. So in this video we take a look at some of the biggest mysteries I've covered so far. Many people the world over believe that life exists or once existed on Mars, and over the years many mysterious objects have been discovered on the planet. In this video we take a look at an alleged UFO hovering above Mars. Now before I start, it's important to remember that UFO stands for Unidentified Flying Object. It's only been in the last few decades that UFOs have somehow been connected to alien life. As I've mentioned before, most sightings can be explained. One of my subscribers sent me this photo a while back. She stated that she was on the Mars Rover app and came across these photos. She said the following: "I couldn't believe what I found. The strange object looks to be hovering. I have no idea what it is. You can clearly see the space between the craft and the surface. This really is a great capture. I can't think of what this object could be. Perhaps it's some type of illusion. I'm interested to hear your theories, so don't forget to leave a comment." Earth is the only place we know for certain supports life. Many claims have been made by observers who thought they saw evidence of life on Mars, but we now know they were tricked by very difficult measurements. From Earth, even with our most powerful telescopes, we cannot see enough detail on Mars to answer this question. While robotic spacecraft have given us wonderful views, no humans have ever tried to journey to Mars, and no such missions will be attempted for many years. In the meantime, NASA is working very hard to discover whether there is life on Mars. The United States and other countries have been sending spacecraft to orbit or land there since the 1960s, and each mission tells us more about this fascinating planet. We have learned that even though Mars is more similar to Earth than anywhere else in the solar system, and therefore is a good place to look for life, is still different from Earth in many ways. A compass points to the North Pole on Earth because our whole planet acts like a giant magnet, but Mars does not act this way. Besides turning a compass needle, Earth's magnetic field turns away any dangerous particles of space radiation. Without a magnetic field on Mars, and with much less air than on Earth, more harmful space radiation reaches its surface. Although some measurements tells us there probably is water on Mars, there is far less than on Earth, and it's so cold there that most of its water is probably not liquid but rather is ice. Overall, Mars would be a pretty uncomfortable place to try and live. Here is another unidentified flying object spotted above the red planet. It matches similar objects seen here on Earth. Most people have never heard of Pareidolia, but nearly everyone has experienced it. Anyone who has looked at the moon and spotted two eyes, a nose and a mouth has felt the pull of Pareidolia. It's the imagined perception of a pattern where it does not actually exist. It's picking a face out of a knotted tree trunk, or finding zoo animals in the clouds. But many have questioned how this can be Pareidolia. We can clearly see an object hovering in the sky. Guesses for what it is range from atmospheric phenomena to meteorites. But what do you think it is? Let me know in the comments. The Michigan Dogman is a werewolf-type creature first reported in 1887 in Wexford County, Michigan. Sightings have been reported in several locations throughout Michigan, primarily in the northwestern quadrant of the Lower Peninsula. In 1987, the legend of the Michigan Dogman gained popularity when a disc jockey at WTCM-FM recorded a song about the creature and its reported sightings. The first known sighting of the Michigan Dogman occurred in 1887, when two lumberjacks saw a creature whom they described as having a man's body and a dog's head. In 1938 in Paris, Michigan, Robert Fortney was attacked by 5 wild dogs, and said that one of the 5 dogs walked on 2 legs. Reports of similar creatures also come from Allegan County in the 1950s. In 1961, a night watchman was patrolling a manufacturing plant in Big Rapids, Michigan, when he saw a peculiar figure. At first he thought it was a person until he saw the dog-like features. He pulled out his gun and was about to shoot when he remembered his camera, and took it out and took a picture of the horrific beast. The photos haven't been analysed yet, and the photo still remains an unsolved mystery. One witness claims a creature best described as a dogman was stalking up the hill behind their house in the late fall of 2001. They said the following: "My stepdaughter and I was looking out our French doors to see a creature that was black in colour. It was big and had the head of a wolf. While that was the first and only visual the Cass County, Michigan residents experienced, they can still hear it splashing around the 20-acre swampland at night. Sometimes they can even hear it shrieking. According to them, it has the scream of an infant, loud and hysterical." The Cheyenne established their own group of warriors known as the Dog Soldiers or Dogmen. Native Americans would spend years studying or becoming one with their spirit animal, taking on the mannerisms and strength of wolves or wild dogs. Allegedly, all the dogmen were killed off by the US Army. However, according to lore passed down to them by the elders, not all of them died. According to legend, some of the dogmen actually shapeshift into dogs and now roam the woods and swamplands. It's worth noting that while all witnesses of these half-dog, half-men beasts admit to feeling terrified, there haven't been any known deaths or physical attacks attributed to a dogman. This is thought to be because of the Indian belief that one must invite evil into themselves, therefore the creatures cannot harm you unprovoked. Back in 1938, a 17-year-old claims that while standing near a river in Michigan, he was confronted by a massive black dog. He didn't report his encounter until 49 years later, but he swore the beast reared up on its hind legs and stared him down with piercing blue eyes. Terrified, he shot at the creature and it quickly fled. He remained chilled by the events for years to come, however later stating, "It may be that I was just scared, but I swear the dog was smiling at me." One particular memorable dogman account came from a 13-year-old girl named Courtney who lived out in Reed City, Michigan back in 1993. She decided to sneak out for a cigarette behind her family's house one winter, and she got the scare of her life. She claimed that a glint of light seeping out from the planks of an old abandoned barn got her attention. She followed its movement and it slowly dawned on her that something was there. She realised the 6-foot-tall thing hiding in the barn had the head of a dog, and was staring right at her. She ran off terrified. Later, her neighbour confirmed they too saw a creature out in that barn. They described it as a buffalo-sized dog lurking in the barn. Rhonda, a resident of 3 Lakes in Michigan, had a dogman encounter in the fall of 2009. She was travelling with her son when the beast ran across the highway near Tiger Creek. She said the following: "We were really puzzled and thought it might have been some mutant wolf, and could not figure out what we witnessed." She went on to say the beast ran fairly fast, about 50 feet in front of our truck. It was so strange because the front of it was much higher than the back, much larger than a wolf. She claimed she never heard of the dogman until after this incident. After reading descriptions and stories online, she was able to confirm for herself that the creature she encountered was a dogman. So what do you think these people are seeing? Do you personally think the dogman is real? Let me know in the comments. The state of West Virginia has had its fair share of strange and often inexplicable events, such as the visitation of the Flatwoods Monster, but perhaps the strangest yet is the arrival of the creature known as the Mothman. The first recorded Mothman sighting took place on November 12, 1966. 5 men were in a cemetery preparing a grave for burial when they saw something they couldn't explain. Lifting off from the nearby trees was a brown-winged creature. The men held to the fact that what lifted off from beyond the trees was no bird. It was a humanoid. The creature was sighted in many places across West Virginia and the surrounding states, but the largest number of sightings happened near the old West Virginia Ordnance Works, an area now known by the locals as the TNT area. The area is riddled with abandoned tunnels, most of which have collapsed, been sealed off or become flooded with water. A wildlife sanctuary now encompasses the area. In 1979, fishermen in the TNT area reported that chemicals had been left to seep into the ponds, causing it to be labelled as an environmental disaster. By the year 1983, the TNT area was amongst the country's most polluted sites. It was here in the TNT area on November 15th, 1966, 3 days after the first sighting took place, that two couples would encounter this bizarre creature. They were driving through the area around midnight when one of them noticed two large glowing red eyes in the darkness. They soon learned that those eyes belonged to something that looked human. The creature was around 7 feet tall and had wings. After stopping the car, the couples inspected the creature. The four realised immediately that their spectacle was no ordinary bird. The true horror began, however, when the creature spread its wings and pursued them down Highway 62, to the Point Pleasant city limits at speeds exceeding 100 miles per hour. Although this encounter is frightening, some have suggested the descriptions fit the sandhill crane, the second largest American crane, which stands almost as high as a man and has a wingspan of more than 7 feet. On the 20th of November 2016, an unidentified man captured these images of what is believed to be the Mothman. The photographer gave the pictures to local news station WCHS, claiming he took them while driving on State Route 2. The station aired the pictures in a 2016 report. The images are grainy and show the silhouette of a two-legged winged creature flying around the treetops. In 1976 in Mornan, Cornwall, there was a sighting of a large creature known as Owlman. The first sighting took place on April 17, 1976, when the creature was spotted hovering above the Mornan Church Tower. Strangely, sightings up to August 1978 all occurred within the vicinity of this church. This cryptid was about the size of a man. It had pointed ears, red eyes, and black pincer-like claws. Somewhat eerily, there were many UFO reports as well as encounters of animals behaving strangely in the surrounding area just prior to the Owlman sightings. To date, we've explored less than 5% of the ocean. The ocean is the lifeblood of Earth, covering more than 70% of the planet's surface, driving weather, regulating temperature, and ultimately supporting all living organisms. The average depth of the ocean is around 12,000 feet. The deepest part of the ocean is called the Challenger Deep, and is located beneath the Western Pacific Ocean in the southern end of the Mariana Trench. Challenger Deep is approximately 36,200 feet deep. So with this knowledge, we should keep an open mind about what could be laying at the bottom of the ocean. The Baltic Sea anomaly is a 60-meter diameter circular rock-like formation on the floor of the northern Baltic Sea. It was discovered by Peter Lindberg, Dennis Asberg and their Swedish Ocean X diving team in June 2011. The discovery was made on the 19th of June 2011, during a dive in the Baltic Sea between Sweden and Finland while searching for an old shipwreck. The group describes themselves as treasure hunters and salvage operators who specialise in underwater searches for historic artefacts. According to Ocean X, the formation has an appearance of rough granite, and is 3 to 4 meters thick and approximately 60 meters in diameter. The anomaly stands on an 8-meter tall pillar-like feature, and is located at a depth of 80 to 90 meters. During one of their expeditions, it was reported the divers exploring the anomaly said their equipment stopped working as they approached it. Professional diver Stefan Hogburn said, "Anything electrical out there as well as the satellite phone stopped working when we were above the object. When we got away about 200 meters it turned on again, and when we got back over the object it didn't work." Those who believe this to be a UFO has said this is a common case of UFO interference. UFOs have been notorious for stopping automobiles at close range. These effects are not limited to automobiles, but occur with all kinds of vehicles that are powered by internal combustion engines. Incidents of engine interference or failure have been reported for aircraft, motorcycles, trucks, buses and other farm machinery. In all cases, the engines ran normally after the UFO had departed. The Ocean X team reported on their second expedition that they'd found something that looks like a staircase and a round black hole that goes directly into the structure. The mystery surrounding the unknown object at the bottom of the Baltic Sea deepened when geologist Steve Weiner said that according to his tests, the object was not a geological formation, suggesting that the structure was in fact made from metals which nature could not reproduce. The two divers had never witnessed such an incredible spectacle in over 20 years of underwater research. They compared the size of this object to a passenger plane. It was also mentioned by the pair that the trail leading towards the unknown object kind of suggests it was some sort of possible crash, and this thing had somehow skidded along the seafloor. Outside of the object on the surface, the researchers have also reported seeing unusual carvings, almost like unnatural looking shapes. The unknown object sits at a depth of 90 meters, and waters in the area are always muddy, factors that make it virtually impossible to film or photograph the site. A former Swedish naval officer speculated that the sonar image could show the remains of a World War II German anti-submarine device, while others have considered that it could be a damaged gun turret from an old battleship. Lindbergh acknowledges that the object could instead be a natural formation, such as a meteorite that penetrated the ice during the Ice Age, or an underwater volcano. However, he gives the impression that scientists are baffled by it. Geologists, for example, have supposedly told him the object cannot be a volcano. The divers recently gave samples of stone from the object to a professor of geology at Stockholm University. Swedish tabloids quote him as saying, "I was surprised when I researched the material. I found a great black stone that could be a volcanic rock. My hypothesis is that this structure was formed during the Ice Age, many thousands of years ago." In other words, an expert appears to back up their claims that the seafloor object is unexplained, and perhaps is an Atlantis-like ancient building complex. However, after being consulted, neither he or any other experts contacted about the Baltic Sea object think there's anything mysterious about it. He explains that the samples are exactly what one would expect to see in a glacier basin, which is what the Baltic Sea is, a region carved out by glacier ice long ago. Along with the rocks, the divers also gave him a single loose piece of basaltic rock, a type of rock that forms from hardened lava. This is out of place on the seafloor but not unusual. He states the whole northern Baltic region is so heavily influenced by glacial thawing processes. Both the feature and the rock samples are likely to have formed in connection with glacial and post-glacial processes. Possibly these rocks were transported there by glaciers. But there are some who believe this isn't the case. Let me know in the comments what you think it is. The Great Pyramid is a true masterpiece and has rightly earned the title of a wonder. It was built with such precision that our current technology cannot replicate it. There are so many interesting facts about this pyramid that it baffles archaeologists, scientists, astronomers and tourists. The pyramid is 756 feet long on each side, 481 feet high and composed of 2.3 million stones weighing nearly 3 tons each. All of these stones give it a total mass of around 6.5 million tons. Legend has it that the structure was erected in just 20 years' time, meaning that a block had to be moved into place about every 5 minutes of every day and night. That pace would have required the labour of thousands. Taking these facts into account, it seems pretty incredible, if not impossible. We're all aware of these incredible facts, but there may be another pyramid that's even more impressive. Google Earth images of Antarctica have revealed what look like pyramids, prompting conspiracy theorists to suggest they were created by anything from lost civilizations to aliens. The snow pyramids have the internet abuzz with the idea there was once an ancient human civilization that once lived in Antarctica. 3 pyramids have been found, with 2 of them 10 miles inland and the third near the coastline. They have 4 sides, prompting comparisons to the Egyptian pyramids of Giza. Scientists suggest that humans could have once lived in the frozen areas, as it may once have been a lot warmer, perhaps even up to 20 degrees. Speaking to sources, Dr. Vanessa Bowman of the British Antarctic Survey once said, "Go back 100 million years ago and Antarctica was covered in lush rainforests similar to those that exist in New Zealand today." Other suggestions are that the pyramids are the remnants of the lost city of Atlantis, or they were built with the help of aliens. But do these photos actually show a real pyramid? It appears the pyramids may have a more earthly explanation. For years, climbers heading to Antarctica's largest peak, Vinson Massif, have passed one of these supposed pyramids. Even a National Geographic photographer snapped a few pictures of it from the peak of Vinson Massif. There are other photos and videos on the internet showing climbers ascending this peak, while the pyramids can be seen in the background, and all by appearance no one is really paying much attention to it. The pyramid may well be a natural formation known as a nunatak. These are mountain peaks that extend up above massive glaciers. They are found throughout Antarctica and Greenland. It's believed these formations were formed by years of erosion caused by shifting glaciers. One of the pyramidal mountains which doesn't have a formal name is one of the many peaks that make up Antarctica's Ellsworth Mountains, which were discovered by the American aviator Lincoln Ellsworth during a flight on November 23, 1935. More specifically, the unnamed mountain is in the southern part of the Ellsworth Mountains, in an area called the Heritage Range, which is known for its extraordinary fossils, including those of the Cambrian period trilobites from more than 500 million years ago. Freeze-thaw erosion likely led to its pyramid-like shape. This happens when snow or water fills up cracks within a mountain during the day. When night falls and temperatures drop, the snow freezes and expands, turning into ice. The expanding ice causes the cracks to grow. University of California geology professor Eric Ringnot told Life Science in 2016, "This is just a mountain that looks like a pyramid." But there are some who believe this is not the case, suggesting that an ancient civilization built these pyramids, much in the same way that Egyptians built theirs. North America has its own monster. While Scotland has its Loch Ness Monster and the Himalayas has its Yeti, North America lays claim to Sasquatch, or as he's been nicknamed, Bigfoot. Sasquatch is a 7 to 9 foot tall man-ape that's been sighted in North America for centuries. Before the European invasion, Native Americans were very familiar with this hairy giant that lived in the wilderness. There have been many sightings of this creature in Western Canada, and in many states of the US, especially the Pacific Northwest and even as far as Florida, where the swamp-dwelling beast is known as the Skunk Ape. This photo was sent to me by Sarah, who asked if I could provide more information on it. After doing some research, I found out that it's a 2014 trail cam picture of a Bigfoot. It was captured in Mossy Rock in Lewis County. A radio host was contacted regarding the Bigfoot photo. The listener knew a man from Mossy Rock, Washington who had captured an image on his trail cam after hearing loud screams that they couldn't identify. He set up a game camera in hopes of capturing an image of whatever was creating these amazing screams. They ended up capturing these photos. As far as I know, there hasn't been any more information. The witnesses didn't do any interviews regarding the sighting. This is a camera phone photo picture of a printed out copy. It's said that the owner isn't great on computers, so it's believed not to be a hoax. Many who have seen the photo suggest it's a hoax because of how clear it is, but others have argued that when a clear photo is taken, it's immediately dismissed. It's been said that the trail cam owner may have not done the hoax himself, but someone may have been pranking him. My question to you is, what do you think it is? Let me know in the comments. The whole basis of the reality of the Bigfoot legend rests largely on the hundreds of footprint casts that have been made and collected. It would be foolish to assume that every footprint is genuine, as the Bigfoot mystery is contaminated by hoaxes. However, it would be equally foolish to assume that every footprint is a hoax. There have been more than 900 footprints attributed to Bigfoot collected over the years, having an average length of 15.6 inches. Although sightings of large man-like creatures in North America predate the arrival of Europeans, reports of footprints are more recent, and there is a mention of large tracks in the early 19th century. An early settler by the name of David Thompson crossed the Rockies near the present site of Jasper, Alberta in the winter of 1811. He mentions coming across the tracks of a large animal. The entry in his journal reads, "Continuing our journey in the afternoon, we came on the tracks of a large animal, the snow about 6 inches deep on the ice. I measured it. 4 large toes of 4 inches in length. The ball of the foot sunk 3 inches lower than the toes. The hinder part of the foot did not mark well. The length 14 inches by 8 inches. Walking from north to south and having passed about 6 hours. We were in no humour to follow him. Its great size was not that of a bear." The sighting of a Sasquatch is accompanied by a very strong, very foul odour. In June 1988, Sean Fries was camping on the North Fork of California's Feather River. I climbed into my tent and laid down on my bedroll. I let my dogs run around because they always stay close to the camp. I started to doze off when suddenly I woke up. It was dead quiet. No crickets or anything. And then suddenly my dogs come running into the tent shaking. I grabbed my rifle and flashlight and stepped outside the tent. I couldn't see anything but had the sensation of being watched. Then I heard some very heavy footsteps right behind me in the trees. There was also a very strange odour, almost like a cross between a skunk and something dead. This thing circled my campsite all night. The skunk ape is a bipedal humanoid, reported in the southeastern United States, most notably in the Florida Everglades. The skunk ape's most obvious character is its terrible odour, which gives it its name. The first ever sighting of the skunk ape were reported throughout the 1960s and 1970s. In autumn of 1974, many reports were filed in Dade County, Florida. 26 years later, in the autumn of 2000, the police of Sarasota County, Florida received a letter from a woman. With the letter were 2 attached photographs of what the woman said was an escaped orangutan, who had been stealing apples from her back porch for 3 nights. After the images were released to the public, cryptid enthusiasts dubbed the creature in the photograph the skunk ape. Most sightings of the skunk ape, like Bigfoot sightings, can be dismissed as black bear sightings. It's entirely possible for a black bear to stand upright, making it appear like another animal entirely. Bears are also known to rummage through garbage bins, which could possibly explain the smell associated with this creature. Many of us know the story of Noah's Ark. God told Noah to build a big boat called an ark, and he told Noah exactly how to do it. The ark was to be 450 feet long, 75 feet wide and 45 foot high. It was to have 3 decks, be divided into rooms and have a door in the side. Noah was to find 1 male and 1 female of every kind of animal and bird and take them into the ark. He also had to take food for all those animals. Believed to be fiction by many, there are some who believe that it's not only a real story, but there is actual proof of the ark itself. Every few years, a new team of mountaineers claim to have discovered what could only be the ark, and climbs down from the mountaintop carrying chunks of rock believed to be wood. Extensive satellite searches of Mount Ararat have been conducted. They particularly focus on something called the Ararat Anomaly, an unidentified arc-sized formation near the mountaintop. Photographed by the US Air Force in 1949 and thought by some to be the ark. Even for the scientifically inclined, it is conceivable there is a grain of truth to the Great Flood story, since the Old Testament is after all a document written by human beings about the world as they knew or understood it. Perhaps there was a mighty flood one year, which a fortunate man and his family weathered in a massive boat. For the next 20 years, the ark search was concentrated on Mount Ararat itself. From 1960 until 1984, nothing was heard of the ship formation. Attention again focused in the summer of 1984, when Ron White convinced astronaut James Irwin and Dr. John Morris to take a look at the site. Ron, who can be a very persuasive fellow, succeeded in convincing them it was the ark. A news conference was held and they announced the discovery. The next day the news was broadcast throughout the world. Some Christian radio and TV stations played it up pretty big. One radio station was reporting that the explorers had succeeded in getting inside the ark, and that the wood was being flown back to the States for testing. However, it's not scientifically conceivable that the ark ended up on top of a 15,000 feet tall mountain. Quite simply, there's not enough water on Earth to raise water levels that high. And in case you were thinking that plate tectonics raised the mountain peaks since Noah's time, Mount Ararat was just as tall and out of reach then as now. The anomaly is very unlikely to be an ark. 5 years ago, Farouk Elbaz, director of the Boston University Center for Remote Sensing, told Live Science that believers are interpreting satellite images with a biased outlook. He said the following: "Up to this time, all the images I have seen can be interpreted as natural landforms. The feature that's been interpreted as the Ararat anomaly is to me a ledge of a rock in partial shadow, with varied thickness of snow and ice cover. There are many ancient stories of a flood that are remarkably similar to the story of Noah and the Ark as told in Genesis. The names and places are different, but the story is similar. There are different opinions, but many believe all these stories are based on some event that actually did happen sometime in the distant past. Amphibious anomalies have shocked and terrified both businessmen, farmers and police officers, and remain one of the most intriguing cryptozoological mysteries in the United States. One of the most intriguing cases encountered is that of the Laughlin Frogman, or Loveland lizards. The story of these unique creatures began in May of 1955, on a lonely stretch of road that runs along the Miami River in Claremont County just on the outskirts of a small town known as Loveland. At approximately 3:30 AM, an unnamed businessman claimed to have witnessed 3 bipedal reptilian entities gathering on the side of the road. The man pulled his car to the side of the curb and observed these creatures for what he estimated to be around 3 minutes. During this time, he noticed that these strange beings stood between 3 to 4 feet tall, were covered with leathery skin and had webbed hands and feet. However, their most distinguishing characteristic was their distinctly frog-like head, which the man claimed bore deep wrinkles where the hair should have been. Just as the man was about to leave, one of the creatures suddenly held what the witness could only describe as a wand. The eyewitness could then see the strange creature holding the wand above its head. Thus begins the bizarre legend of the Laughlin Frogman. This tale would be fascinating enough if it ended there, but the 2 most significant encounters in this case were yet to come. At about 1 AM on March 3rd, 1972, nearly 17 years after the first report, a police officer was travelling along a roadside heading towards Loveland when he saw something that would change his life forever. The officer claimed that he was driving slowly when he saw what looked like a dog on the curb. Suddenly, the animal darted in front of the car, forcing the officer to slam on the brakes, in order to avoid a potential collision with the creature. Once the police cruiser came to a halt, its headlights fell upon the animal. At this point, the officer described something that seems literally too bizarre to be true. In the span of seconds, this crouched, frog-like creature stood on its 2 legs, stared back at the policeman, then scrambled over the guardrail, and scurried down the embankment, finally disappearing into the river. The officer in question described the creature as being 3 to 4 feet tall and weighing in the area of 50 to 75 pounds. He also claimed that its skin had a leathery texture and that the animal's features resembled those of a frog or lizard. Another officer investigated the scene later that evening. He saw no sign of the creature, but reported there were distinct scratch marks on the guardrail where the animal purportedly crossed. The second sighting occurred 2 weeks later while police officer Mark Matthews had an encounter of his own. According to the report, Officer Matthews, while driving into Loveland, spotted what he believed to be an injured animal lying on the pavement. Matthews climbed out of his car with the intention of removing the carcass from the already ice-slicked road, when the creature suddenly lurched upwards into a crouched position. Taken back by the reptilian creature, Matthews took a shot at the creature, which then proceeded to hobble over the side of the road and step over a guardrail, all while keeping a watchful eye on the trigger-happy officer. Matthews' frogman matched the first officer's description down to the last detail, with the exception of a tail which was absent in earlier reports. In the years which have followed these events, Officer Matthews has changed his story. He now claims the animal in question was nothing more than a large reptile which escaped from its owner. Some have said that Matthews' change of heart was because of ridicule by superiors. It's hard to believe that this creature ever existed, but one has to question what other animal you would confuse this with. Mars is the 4th planet from the Sun and the 2nd smallest planet in the solar system. Mars is a terrestrial planet with a thin atmosphere composed primarily of carbon dioxide. Scientists have found tiny traces of Martian atmosphere within meteorites violently ejected from Mars, then orbiting the solar system amongst galactic debris for millions of years, before crash landing on Earth. This allowed scientists to begin studying Mars prior to launching space missions. Many people the world over believe that life exists or once existed on Mars. While we found direct evidence of liquid water on the red planet, we have yet to find any microbes there. But not all hope is lost. new discoveries from NASA's Curiosity rover has brought forth more compelling evidence of life on Mars. These are without doubt the most fascinating objects photographed on the surface of Mars. They look like long translucent tubes supported by rows of bright arches. A lot of people have seen these strange structures and have tried to speculate as to what they might be. Some would say these are huge water ducts funneling water from one area to another. Others are firm in thinking that these are some sort of natural geological anomaly only occurring on Mars. McCann and Joseph P. Skipper, both researchers into Martian anomalies, call these images the smoking gun to life on Mars. The image was discovered in June 2000, among the many images posted to Malin Space Science System, which has tens of thousands of Mars pictures available for online viewing and examination. Skipper says these structures are actually in excellent condition. Note their general uniformity in the uniform spacing of the bands or ridges. Note how one structure here clearly attaches to another, and note the shiny round terminating end at the junction point clearly defining it as a constructed hard object, as opposed to a natural geological formation of some kind. Note how at least one or more of the ridges span around both structures, tying them together at the junction point, clearly demonstrating construction technique. Note the apparent translucent composition of these structures, and how entirely alien they clearly are to geology. There can be no question that these are constructs of some kind. But what made it, or who and for what purpose? It's one of the most incredible images that has ever come from space, and there has been no official comments on it whatsoever. The tower seems to show a tall tower or stack with a white tip casting a long shadow. If it's indeed a tower of some kind, it stands at an incredible 6.3 kilometers high, 12 times higher than the largest skyscraper on Earth. Could these structures be optical illusions of natural geological formations? Of course, but to dismiss them outright as not being artificial in origin is just as unscientific as declaring they are created by intelligent beings. The suggestion that they are artificial is such a large claim, but these images should be examined carefully and with skepticism, but also with an open mind. These images of artificial structures could dissolve into natural formations with more detailed higher resolution photographs. This photo of a mysterious object on the surface of Mars was snapped by the Mars orbiter from 165 miles up. It appears to show a freestanding geometric block of undetermined height. A scientist from the University of Arizona is quoted as saying, "In reality, it's more likely that this boulder has been created by breaking away from the bedrock to create a rectangular shaped feature. If so, where is the bedrock from which it has been broken? Where is the stone that fractured off to create this shape? The object seems to be standing quite on its own on a plane of soil. We cannot say if it's an artificial creation, but we can add it to the growing list of peculiar Martian anomalies." So that was some Mars anomalies. But what do you think these alleged tunnels show? I'm interested to hear your theories, so don't forget to leave a comment. For hundreds of years, people have believed in ghosts to some degree. Ghosts appear in the ancient literature, plays, and even current movies, yet ghosts are a largely unknown phenomena. A ghost is a spirit of a person who has died. When someone dies, their physical body, the flesh and blood that allows you to walk and talk, ceases to exist, but the internal essence or spirit continues on. Spiritualists believe that the things that make up your personality, such as your ego and intellect, cannot die, and instead carries on in another plane of existence. This continued existence is what we commonly refer to when we talk about ghosts. While many people believe ghosts are real, seeing them is rare, but that does not mean the ghosts are not there. Many people who have come into contact with ghosts report feeling sensations, such as unexplained cold or dampness and a sense of dread or sadness. Many people attempt to communicate with ghosts and record themselves speaking with a voice recorder. When played back on a voice recorder, some claim you can hear responses from the ghost. This is referred to as electronic voice phenomena. Other people will take pictures of places that they think are inhabited by ghosts. When examining the photos, you can sometimes see little balls of light or orbs. These orbs are not visible to the human eye in the moment, but are evident in pictures. It's believed that these orbs are spirits in the area. However, many consider orbs to be dust particles. There are other types of ghosts called non-intelligent hauntings, which are simply a collection of residual energy signals. They don't always appear in a human form, sometimes just as a shadow, an orb, or a flash of something in the peripheral vision. These residual hauntings generally perform repetitive actions. A ghostly figure walking up the same set of stairs each night, or the sound of an eerie cry in the night on a remote bridge. It's also believed they do not interact with the living on an intelligent level. They may not even be aware of the existence of the living, and they have often been compared to a recording that just continues to repeat over and over again. In late 2011, two friends went to Flat River, Missouri. This area is well known to 4x4 enthusiasts as a good place to ride. The day was going well until one of the friends got stuck. Thinking it would make a good photo, he called out to the other friend to get his iPhone and take a picture. The friend then snapped this picture. At the time, neither of them saw anything out of the ordinary, or had any reason to feel that this would be anything other than a routine photo. However, later when the two were reviewing the pictures, they saw something that truly shocked them and made their hair stand up on end. In the background, a mysterious figure can be seen. When looking at the anomaly, note what appears to be a long rifle in its hand. Also, it looks like the figure is wearing a hat. Some have said that it looks like a soldier, while others have stated it's a woman in a flowing dress with long hair, and also holding what appears to be a stick or a long pole. Over the past few years, rumours have circulated in Japan about the existence of Arctic humanoid life forms inhabiting the icy waters of the Antarctic. Reportedly observed on multiple occasions by crew members of government-operated whale research ships, these ningen are said to be completely white in colour with an estimated length of 20 to 30 metres. Eyewitnesses describe them as having a human-like shape, often with legs, arms and even 5-fingered hands. Sometimes they're described as having fins or large mermaid-like tails instead of legs, or even tentacles. The only visible feature are the eyes and mouth. According to one account, crew members on deck observed what they initially thought was a foreign submarine in the distance. However, when they approached, it became clear that the irregular shape of the thing was not man-made. It was alive. The creature quickly disappeared underwater. Ningen sightings seem to occur most frequently at night, making them all the more difficult to photograph. In still images, the sea cryptids look like ice, though it's said that their smooth human-like skin can be seen when the photographs are enlarged. In any case, no convincing photographs have been made to the public, either because they do not exist or because the photos have been confiscated. This video was taken in the Antarctic and is believed to show one of these creatures. The Mackenzie Poltergeist is one of the most famous attractions when taking the City of the Dead tour within the Greyfriars Kirkyard in Edinburgh, Scotland. George Mackenzie was responsible for the deaths of 18,000 of his countrymen, during a period that was labelled the Killing Time. His reign came to an end in 1691 when he passed away. He was buried in a casket contained in the Black Mausoleum Tomb, a building located on the Greyfriars Kirkyard. In December of 1998, a homeless man wandered through Edinburgh on a stormy night. Seeking shelter from the night's downpour, he staggered into Greyfriars Kirkyard and broke into one of the old mausoleums. Inside the vault was pitch black, and the man decided to explore his surroundings. He removed an iron gate in the floor and descended a short twisting staircase, and entered a second chamber. There he came across 4 wooden coffins. The man began to smash open the caskets. As he did so, a hole suddenly opened beneath his feet and he fell through the wooden division into a third chamber, the existence of which had been previously unknown. the unfortunate intruder landed in a deep pit that had been used for illegally dumping those that had died from the plague. Despite being hundreds of years old, the pit had remained well sealed, and the corpses that greeted the unlucky tramp were far from skeletal. Not surprisingly, the man desperately fled the tomb, not stopping even when he cut his head on the tomb's entrance. The homeless man fled into Edinburgh's darkness. The vault the homeless man broke into was the Black Mausoleum. Once these stories hit the internet, the legend of the Mackenzie Poltergeist in Greyfriars was born, and lit up the area like wildfire, attracting ghost hunters and seekers from every corner of the earth. Over 500 ghostly attacks have been reported by victims visiting the tomb, many of these injuries documented with photographs. So far, documented injuries by the Mackenzie ghost include burns, skin gouges around the neck and abdomen, unexplained bruises, broken fingers and feeling as if one's hair is being pulled. Some visitors have said they were kicked or punched by an invisible attacker. Others talk of feeling nausea or numbness. Strange smells or hallucinations such as walls and floor knocks. These have all occurred with multiple witnesses present. Some even claim the ghosts have followed them back to their home or hotel. Today, many people believe this graveyard is haunted by the Mackenzie Poltergeist, an evil spirit whose hatred lives on from beyond the grave. The Yeti is a giant ape-like creature believed to be found in the Himalayas. Yetis, according to 21st century sightings, are said to stand from 8 to 11 feet tall, have a furry coat of brown, reddish or black hair and said to resemble a huge upright walking ape. Contrary to popular misconception, the Yeti is not white. There have been no reports of white Yeti in reality. Several expeditions have taken place to find the Yetis. Footprints, bones and their hair samples have been discovered. Held sacred in a Buddhist monastery in Nepal is what some believe to be a hand of a Yeti. While many believe the hand is fake, many flock to the monastery to catch a glimpse. The monks consider the hand sacred and won't allow any scientific testing. Peter Byrne discovered that the monks of the monastery claimed to hold a Yeti skull in hand. Byrne was not the first Westerner to see the supposed Yeti remains. As early as 1953, a group of Indian mountaineers and Austrian and British scientists viewed and measured the Yeti sculpt, although none of them mentioned the hand. The relics, it seemed, provided a source of income for the centuries-old temple since they were viewed as sacred relics by local worshippers, and because the monks would allow visitors to photograph the bones for a fee. It was said that Peter Byrne smuggled the hand out of Nepal, giving it to the London University for testing. The hand was then stolen and its current location is a mystery. It's thought to be in a private collection traded through the black market. William Hill ran tests on the hand with surprising results. He concluded the hand was indeed hominid, but more closely matched that of Neanderthal than modern man. In addition, tests were run by the BBC for a documentary and found the hand to be near human. Misidentification of Himalayan wildlife has been proposed as an explanation for some Yeti sightings, including the langur monkey living at low altitudes, the Tibetan blue bear and the Himalayan brown bear. Some have also suggested the Yeti could actually be a human hermit. The Yeti has broad shoulders unlike those of bears whose scapula lie close to the body. The Yeti walks erect, bears do not. The Yeti seems to have an opposable thumb, allowing it primitive tool use such as hurling rocks. No bears can do this. Also, eyewitness accounts describe a flat, ape-like face unlike that of any bear. Overall, Gigantopithecus or some other great ape seems like a more plausible explanation for the Yeti. Unidentified flying object is the popular term for any aerial phenomenon whose cause cannot be easily or immediately identified. Both military and civilian research shows that a significant majority of UFO sightings have been identified after further investigation. Typically, most sightings turn out to be either stars, planets, advertising planes, optical illusions, and hoaxes. Skeptics argue that the remainder of the reports could probably be explained if additional information were available. In the last 30 years or so, the triangle shape has become a topic of much discussion. Often reported as flying low and running silent with several lights on the bottom. Sightings of these objects often comes in waves, and they are reported as being able to go from a crawl to a high-speed departure in a matter of seconds. Many feel that the triangle UFO may be a top-secret government craft, still in the experimental stage and more than likely designed with military implications. Some researchers feel they're the next step in the stealth series of craft, capable of flying low and making their exits without being detected by enemy radar. This type of craft would be indispensable for enemy surveillance, especially with weapon capabilities. Although the triangle craft seemed to be a dark, mysterious entity, according to researcher and author Clyde Lewis, triangle sightings in the UK are almost an everyday occurrence. He states in his article, "There have been approximately 4,000 reports of triangles since 1990 in the UK alone. There have also been waves of triangle sightings in Belgium, France, Holland and Germany." On March 30th, 1993, multiple witnesses across southwest and West England saw a large black triangle at low speeds. Analysis of the sighting by Nick Pope concluded that the object moved in a northeasterly course from Cornwall to Shropshire over a period of approximately 6 hours. The Kenosha Ufo Wave began in December 2016. The events of the 17th of February were documented by multiple groups of witnesses. All of the reports consist of multiple dark triangular objects in the sky with blinking white and red lights. The craft was also seen on the 19th of January 2017, barely hovering above the ground. The object was described as dark on the bottom with lights and silvery on top. The Phoenix Lights were a series of widely cited unidentified flying objects observed in the skies over Arizona and Nevada in the United States, and Sonora, Mexico on Thursday the 13th of March 1997. There were allegedly 2 distinct events involved in the incident. A triangular formation of lights seen to pass over the state, and a series of stationary lights seen in the Phoenix area. The United States Air Force identified the second group of lights as flares dropped by an A-10 Warthog that were on training exercises at the Barry Goldwater Range in southwest Arizona. These flares have a burn time of around 5 minutes, but this contradicts the sighting. The craft was seen for more than 3 hours, so some have questioned how it could have been flares. The governor at the time was one witness to the incident. He later called the object otherworldly. Now let's take a look at some triangle UFOs caught on camera. Mysterious loud booms have been heard in many locations this year, and despite much speculation, no one knows what's causing this phenomenon. Are the sounds of natural or artificial origin? Is a question not even NASA has been able to answer yet. This year the booming sounds have been recorded in 64 countries, of which include Australia, New Zealand, England, Italy, Russia and many more. NASA's Bill Cook said the origin of the mysterious boom still remains unclear. He believes the sounds could be produced by a large supersonic aircraft, or a ground explosion. According to Cook, NASA's meteor scientists will continue to analyse new data in hopes of determining the cause of the boom. The loud booms are not the only peculiar sound that have frightened people. People worldwide have also reported hearing very peculiar trumpet sounds emitting from the sky. The sounds does not only cause alarm, but it also makes people behave strange when listening to it. The noise itself seems to be localised to certain areas, and tends to be heard in silent rooms or in places where there's not much noise. For this reason, those that complain about the hum tend to complain the most at night and other quieter parts of the day. What makes the phenomenon all the more unusual is the fact that only certain people seem to be able to hear the sound. There was one woman in England, for example, who became infuriated with the hum after none of her friends were able to hear it. She claimed the constant droning noise was like torture. As for how the hum actually sounds, it ranges from a loud trumpet to a drone that moves up and down. While it'd be great to simply write the humming sound off as the result of factory or an aeroplane, we can't forget the sound has a darker side. As mentioned earlier, people said they get weird sensation when the noise occurs. Reactions range from being scared to even turning violent. The more conventional suggestions seem to revolve around it being the result of heavy machinery in nearby factories, mobile phone masts, gas pipelines and many other mundane explanations. In fact, in one case in Indiana, USA, the source of the hum was confirmed as being an air compressor and a cooling tower. But these are isolated cases, and unlikely to be related to the more insidious humming reported here in the UK. When I covered this a while back, one of my subscribers sent me a message saying the following. In the summer of 2016, me and a few friends decided to climb Ben Nevis. It took us just over 4 hours, but when we reached the top the view was amazing. Incredibly though, we heard a loud trumpet-like noise. At first I thought it was just me who could hear it, but my friends said they could also hear the odd sound. It was really weird and all of us were left scratching our heads. There were no planes or helicopters above us, and there was nothing around for miles. It sounded like a giant trumpet was being played in the sky. Even today I have no idea what it was. So what do you think this mysterious sound is? Let me know your theories in the comments.
is it? Weird, whatever it is. Oh man, don't know what that is.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.